Morning, all. Another episode of Stand on Guard for you here this morning. We are in a very decisive juncture in Canadian history and provincial rights, whether the Liberal government continues to tell us what to do, a lot of other things. We're going to unpack these things this morning together when we come back. We need a political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like this broadcast and the station. It helps us when you do so early in the broadcast if you can. This is why we do it live. And thank you so much for the support you've given us over the last year and a half. Appreciate it so much. And actually, I think it's been almost 2 years now when I think of it. But it has been a tremendous journey, and I'm always happy to say that. Remember when I always say, never have your tie askew. But and please subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to hit that magic number. And if you need to resubscribe, sometimes you have to do that. So what's happening right now? Let's make some sense out of this, because I did an early radio show interview this morning and sort of prepped me in my mind for what this broadcast was going to be about. And I'm thinking here that there's a plan going on. And this is a Liberal Party plan. And it's all about making Justin Trudeau look good. And if Justin Trudeau does eventually resign, it's about making his successor look good. Now, you may recall, I've been saying this for quite some time, and I'm not going to play much of this, but this is like from November. Trying to foment a trade war with Donald Trump, trying to keep the friction going because that's the only solution for Justin Trudeau. That's the only way he thinks he can stay in power. That's the only way he thinks he can retain the levers if he starts a trade war with Donald Trump and makes it into a nationalistic issue. We have to protect ourselves from Donald Trump. Jagmeet Singh is still in Justin Trudeau's pocket. No question about it. He's always been in Justin Trudeau's pocket, even though he likes to go do little videos where he's ripping up agreements. You know, I hate to say it, folks, but you know what's possible here, don't you? You know what's possible. And Jagmeet Singh has discussed this. Supporting Justin Trudeau because it's in the national interest, because he's putting Canada first. Or it's not really putting the Liberals first. I think if he does that, at this point, he's going to have a caucus revolt, because we need to bring this illegitimate government down. It needs to be brought down with a non-confidence vote. Now, is that going to happen? If Jagmeet Singh says no at the end of March, it's not going to happen. But like I say, I think he's going to have trouble corralling his caucus into that decision. Let's listen to what Justin Trudeau said yesterday. And who's the enemy here? Of course, Donald Trump. This is all about making Donald Trump the enemy and Justin Trudeau and the Liberals the heroes.
And I understand Danielle Smith has posted online her sort of reaction to this and why she didn't sign the communique, saying she can't support what's going on today because the idea is still being floated about putting an export tariff on our oil and gas. So what's your reaction to that? Why were you unable to bring her on board with this?
Doug, you want that?
Well, that's what's unique about our group. Everyone has their interest at heart, and I respect Premier Smith. I respect that she's concerned about protecting her energy, and that's her choice. That is her choice. But I have a little different theory. I have a different theory that protect your jurisdiction, but country comes first. Canada is a priority. And I don't believe in jeopardizing one sector or another. Premier Smith's oil is Ontario's auto sector, right? So again, we all have different views, and we can.
Yeah, and there's Justin Trudeau backed up as usual by Doug Ford. It's a common position for Doug Ford to be standing behind Justin Trudeau. He did it throughout all of the COVID pandemic. He did it throughout the invocation of the Emergencies Act. He supported that. I've said this many, many times before. Maybe I don't need to say it again, but that's exactly what Doug Ford has done. And of course, what about all of these electric vehicle plants that Doug Ford has stood behind Justin Trudeau? They're all shutting down. Doug Ford is defending the one thing. He alluded to it, the auto sector, because he's worried he's going to lose that. Now,
each other's views, but at the end of the day, when the tariffs come, it's going to affect Albertans. It's going to affect people from BC and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, all the way down the road. No one's exempt from that. And all I believe in, if it comes to that, let's have the tools in our toolbox to react, to send a strong message. But it's not going to be all of a sudden one province or one territory is exempt on this. When Donald Trump comes at us, he's not going to say, well, let's not worry about Ontario, they're good people, or Alberta. He's coming full tilt at Canadians as a whole.
Okay, what's he saying? Does he even know what he's saying? We'll show some more clips of Doug Ford exhibiting his profound ignorance. Now, here's how Danielle Smith responded to some of these things. And we'll get Danielle Smith on tape, but I find her comments here. Did you know Canada and the United States are connected by 450,000 kilometers of pipelines? That's enough to circle the earth 11 times. There are over 500 operating refineries and petrochemical plants in the United States that create value-added products, with over 70% depending solely on raw crude oil from Canada. This is a clear reminder that it's time to set politics aside and avoid tariffs that could significantly hurt not just the Canadian economy, but the American economy as well. Okay, let's explain what she's saying here. And once again, Danielle Smith is being demonized as the one premier who won't play on the team. But what does Danielle Smith mean here? If we embargo oil and gas from the United States, Ontario and Quebec are not going to get their oil and gas because it comes from the same pipeline. Danielle Smith outlined this very well the other day. But what does it mean for you putting gas in your tank? It means you're going to be paying perhaps double that you are right now. Why? Because, yeah, we have lots of oil in this country. We have lots of oil and gas. We have so much we can sell it to the United States. But the gas you're putting in your car doesn't come from Canada. It's being refined in the United States. So if we cut off oil and gas to the United States, what's going to happen? Are we even going to have oil and gas? Are we going to have gasoline at the pumps to put into our cars? Because the United States could shut off the tap of refined petroleum, which means gasoline. And this is something Doug Ford is either too ignorant or too stupid to realize. Yes, I don't like Doug Ford. I haven't for quite some time. I don't like Doug Ford because he's a faux conservative. He pretends to be a conservative. He is not. And because he is Justin Trudeau's, well, not even silent partner. He's Justin Trudeau's buddy. And he's made it quite clear that every time he wants to support Justin Trudeau, it's because it's in the national interest. It's because he puts Canada first. That is balderdash. Now, Danielle Smith also wrote on X, I had a constructive discussion with my fellow premiers on how best to deal with the threat of tariffs from the incoming U.S. administration. We agreed on several strategies, and I look forward to continuing to work with them on this critical issue. However, federal government officials continue to publicly and privately float the idea of cutting off energy supply to the U.S. and imposing export tariffs on Alberta energy and other products to the United States. Until these threats cease, Alberta will not be able to fully support the federal government's plan in dealing with the threatened tariffs. Alberta will simply not agree to export tariffs on our energy or other products, nor do we support a ban on exports of these same products. We will take whatever actions are needed to protect the livelihoods of Albertans from such destructive federal policies. Now, she will be at Donald Trump's inauguration next week. And remember, that inauguration is on Monday. We're literally a weekend away from that inauguration. Do you think the federal government is convincing Donald Trump not to put that tariff on? Well, I don't think so. Because let's listen to what incredible remarks came from Doug Ford yesterday.
Here's Doug Ford going into the meeting. He's got a new hat. Let's listen and watch.
This is an example of how we need to unite, and we cannot let President Trump divide us. He'll be being sworn in a week, and then he's going to lay the tariffs on Canada. He's going to try to devastate our country. He's going to try to divide our country, and we cannot have division in our country. I understand that all around the country, everyone has their concerns, their jurisdictions from coast to coast to coast. But there's one thing that's more important than jurisdictions, is standing up for the country. Country comes first over anything, and we're going to continue to fight against these tariffs, and we're going to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that happens. Hold on.
Already somewhat divided. There are premiers here today who've said nothing should be off the table. Others who don't want energy or hydro or oil or gas or critical minerals on the table. You guys can't even do a joint news conference at the end of the day. So aren't you already divided?
I totally disagree with that. I understand different jurisdictions around the country have their concerns. I understand that. But nothing is more important than standing united. Nothing's more important than keeping every tool in our toolbox, no matter if it's energy or other commodities, high-grade nickel from Ontario.
And there's the prime tool in Ontario's toolbox right there talking at you.
Great aluminum from Quebec, potash from Saskatchewan. And these are the tools that we have. You don't negotiate through weakness, you negotiate through strength. And these are the tools that we need to move forward and make sure that we have tough retaliatory tariffs to defend the country. I'm sorry?
Should we have tariffs on Tesla cars, for example, because we know Elon Musk is a close associate with Trump?
We will discuss that as we sit down with all the premiers and we sit down with the Prime Minister. I want to thank the Prime Minister for putting this meeting together, but I can tell you one thing, nothing's more important than the country. And when we're defending the country, we don't roll over. You're in a card game, you don't show your opposition your cards. If you have some aces, you hold on to those aces. But it's all part of negotiation tactics that President Trump wants to devastate Canada. He wants to devastate Canada through.
No, actually, he wants Canada to look after its border, Doug. That's what he wants. And that's what Canada is not doing. We'll get to the border in a minute, though. Interesting, Doug Ford keeps talking about a poker game, playing cards. Well, that's what Justin Trudeau said was going to be the primary tariff item, was playing cards and bourbon. Seems to me we have a disconnect here. Justin Trudeau's all over the place in the U.S. media talking about, well, we're not really going to do that. Now, suddenly, everything's on the table. After Melanie Joly obviously instructed him that that's the new talking point, Justin. Everything is on the table. Well, thank God for Premier Danielle Smith for saying the Constitution still matters. Energy still belongs to the provinces, not the federal government. We have been through this before. And here's Danielle Smith talking about
a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that. And I don't think Ontarians and Quebec should stand for that as well. They shouldn't be standing by and listening while a federal minister talks about cutting off their energy supply. That's just not on. That makes no sense.
No, indeed. It makes no sense. Neither does Doug Ford in any of this. He gets more and more bizarre in terms of standing up for Canada, standing up for Canada. No, he's standing up for his political interests. And when Donald Trump talked about the dismantling the auto pact, which, by the way, he can't do unilaterally. That's a treaty. And he can't unilaterally overwhelm the Canada-US or the US-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement. He can't unilaterally do that. That's a treaty that Congress ratified and that Congress would have to upend, would have to repeal. Donald Trump can't do that. Donald Trump knows that. He's playing games of semantics, but it's all about the border security, which we'll talk about in a minute. But why wasn't the new public safety minister, David McGuinty, this guy who's served on the head of this intel, this bipartisan or this multi-partisan intel committee for years. He's been in the House of Commons for about 20 years, never been in cabinet. Suddenly, at the last minute in the Trudeau government, he's made public safety minister because Dominique LeBlanc has moved over to finance. They're playing musical chairs. They bring a bunch of non-entities into the cabinet, people who you've never heard of or didn't think were serious choices for cabinet. Well, given the Trudeau cabinet, who isn't? But David McGuinty was not at that meeting yesterday. Shouldn't he have been at least privy to those discussions, since it's border security that Donald Trump is talking about? Yeah, he talks about a 25% tariff, but what the leverage here? That's only leverage because he's concerned that Canada doesn't take its border security seriously. Now, we'll get to border security in a minute, but listen to Doug Ford talk about the Trudeau government's plan for border security.
Blanc laid out the plan. It's a fabulous plan. Let's get out there and tell the people of Canada they've worked hard on it. So what I said this morning after seeing the plan, it's a solid plan, and he's going to work, the minister, McGuinty, will work hand in hand with.
Now, why is Dominique LeBlanc had nothing to do with his plan? He's a finance minister. And once again, David McGuinty's nowhere to be seen. And Doug Ford flatly admits here that he doesn't even know who David McGuinty is.
People like Minister Kersner, our OPP, RCMP, CBSA, the U.S. Border Patrol, DEA. It's a collective, collaborative group that are going to secure our borders. But the numbers that I have seen, it's impressive, and the plan's impressive as well.
What's the plan? Specifics about what this plan involves.
I'll leave that up to the federal government. I'll leave that.
In other words, no, I haven't read it. I lied to you. I just said, yeah, I've read it. I've seen it. No, you haven't. You haven't got a clue.
Up to Minister McGuinty to get out there and put the plan in front of the Canadian people. But it's a solid plan. And if it wasn't a solid plan, I'd be saying it wasn't.
It's a solid plan. And if it wasn't a solid plan, I wouldn't be saying it's a solid plan. Does this sound like double talk to you? Is Doug experiencing some of the issues his late brother used to go through? I'd really like to know.
I don't know him. I wouldn't know him if he walked through the door right now.
He just asked him. He just asked him if David McGuinty should be involved, and he says, "I don't know who he is. If he walked through the door, I wouldn't recognize him." Dominic LeBlanc really thinks that's quite hilarious. But this is the state of the Liberal government. Here's another moment. A lot of people commented, is my mic on? Yeah, okay. Well, we are doing sound checks, by the way, because of that horrible morning. What was it, Monday? I know. It was a horrible morning. Yes, we don't want to experience that again. But this is emblematic for me of what is the problem right now with the Trudeau government.
Good. Is the microphone on? Ça fonctionne?
Ça fonctionne. On dit que ça fonctionne.
Ça fonctionne.
He says, is the microphone on? Ça function? No, ce n'est pas fonction. So, sorry. Ce ne fonctionne pas. Ça ne fonctionne pas. Your government isn't working. And for you to convince Canadians your government's working, I think you're going to have to do something a little better. So here's the Trudeau government's response to Donald Trump. This is a revamped border security plan, except you read it and there's no difference. Nothing has changed in this border security. And I'm going to say in a minute what I think the implications of this are. Not just 25% tariff, but illegal immigration is going to skyrocket on January 20th, 21st.
That's Canada's new Minister of Public Safety. The border between Canada and the United States is the most secure and well-managed border in the world.
Uh-huh. Is that why we had hundreds of thousands of illegals coming across the border during your government, David McGuinty? Is that called good border security? No, there was no border security. There was an open border for a large part of Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister. So this is a fallacy.
It facilitates trade and travel while preventing illegal migration and threats to the security of both countries. Threats to the security of both countries.
Lie number 2. It is not restricting threats. And that's why Donald Trump continues to talk about it.
Including fentanyl and other drugs.
How about terrorism? He doesn't talk about the number of terrorists who have gotten across the northern border into the United States.
That's thanks to the tireless and dedicated law enforcement partners on both sides of the border who work together day in and day out to keep both countries safe. At 1,200 ports of entry. In Canada, 8,500 frontline personnel are preventing illegal goods and inadmissible people from entering Canada. I've just returned, having met with the RCMP's Marine Border Enforcement Team and visited the Border Integrity Operations Centre. Through joint efforts from Canada and the United States, less than 1% of the illegal drugs and crossings into the United States came from Canada. We have a strong border, and we are building a stronger one. An interconnected system to keep each other safe. And nowhere is this more apparent than Canada's firefighters assisting American crews fighting the worst wildfire.
What the hell does that have to do with border security? Yes, we have some brave Canadians down helping people in California, people in Los Angeles fight fires that are a direct result of the incredible mismanagement by Governor Gavin Newsom and his crazy environmental policies. However, that's got absolutely nothing to do with border security.
Fires Los Angeles has ever seen. Canada and the United States have a long, mutually beneficial relationship that keeps our economies strong and our people safe. This hasn't changed at all. To keep it that way, we must always work to maintain and improve that relationship. And when it comes to border security, we are tackling the flow of illegal drugs, guns, and irregular migration. At the federal level, we have been absolutely committed to working with all provinces and territories as we meet these challenges head-on for both Canada and the United States. I'd like to sincerely thank our provincial and territorial partners who are working hard.
No plan yet. He's what, a couple of minutes into his dissertation. No plan.
To provide additional assistance to defend Canada's border under our Team Canada approach, especially Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, who have stepped up. And to the incredible businesses who are working with us, thank you also for your outreach and engagement with your American counterparts. We must work together to protect our people, our jobs, and our economy. Last month, our government presented a comprehensive border plan to bolster the security of our shared border and further increase the level of collaboration with our American counterparts. That border plan invests $1.3 billion to...
There it is. There's the plan. That's the plan they announced over a month ago that Donald Trump said, forget it. Because it's $1.3 billion, not today, not next week, not even this year, over 6 years. Now, how can you possibly project spending on the border over 6 years when you're not going to be the government anymore? But this is exactly how the Trudeau government conducts any sort of security spending at all. They've always got time. Oh. There, we had to show you that. That's that's Doug Ford being the Three Stooges at once. You know, nobody does it better. So, anyway, thank you for that. And
strengthen our border security with more personnel.
To get back to this 1.3 billion over 6 years. He doesn't say over 6 years, by the way. And this is the plan that Doug Ford says, hey, I've seen the plan. It looks great. Except it's the same plan Donald Trump said no to. Now, they're talking about a few more drones. You know, they're talking about some electronic surveillance. Donald Trump has already said, do something now, not in 6 years. But as I said, the Trudeau government projects all of its security spending. It's got lots of time and money for crazy woke policies. It has no problem spending money on medical assistance in dying. It has no problem spending money for LGBTQ programs that target parents who just want to know what's going on in their classrooms. Justin Trudeau has no problem spending money that you never even see outlined in the budget. It's like he's got a black budget that you never actually see. And this is why the deficits keep climbing, because he's spending money that he's not even reporting. But for national defense, well, he keeps saying Canada is going to reach that 2% of the GDP, right? You've heard him say that many times. Well, it's going to reach that 2% of the GDP within a decade, because all of the spending that Justin Trudeau announced in his last budget, all of it is over 10 years. Nothing was improved in the last fiscal year. It's all projected to happen within the next decade. And of course, no government anywhere can make that kind of promise, because it's not going to be the government in 10 years unless it's a dictatorship. Justin Trudeau can't make claims like that. He can't say we're going to be spending this kind of money in 10 years. It's all about looking better than you actually are. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
More tools, advanced technology, drones, surveillance equipment, and helicopters. These investments are already helping to enhance Canada's border surveillance. Let me highlight some of the key measures we have already taken.
Over the last year, we've taken a series of actions to reinforce the integrity of our immigration system and programs contributing to the...
All right. So Mark Miller, I'm not going to bore you with Mark Miller, but he came up with no other information except to say that, yes, we're going to put a cap on immigration sometime in the future. Once again, it's a promise he can't make. He's not going to be the immigration minister in a year. God willing. He's not going to, the Trudeau government's not going to be in power in a year, so he can't make these claims. But they continue to make ridiculous claims like this. The problem we're facing, folks, right now, and this, I say this in all seriousness, is that Justin Trudeau announced today that he's not going to be seeking his seat in Montreal in the next election. He doesn't know what he's going to do with his future. But why do you think they waited so long? That there was no problem over Christmas, took a long Christmas break. There was nothing to worry about. These tariffs would take care of themselves, to the point where Justin Trudeau was going around the United States on media opportunities saying, we're going to put tariffs on bourbon and playing cards. That's really going to hurt the Americans. Nothing was said about really doing something with border security beyond this $1.3 billion joke. And that's exactly what it is. What's going to happen on January 21st? There's tens of millions of illegals in the United States, as I speak, who are going to be fleeing the country because mass deportations are coming. Donald Trump's quite serious about mass deportations, just like he's quite serious about this 25% tariff that's coming if Canada doesn't do something about its border security. He's quite serious about mass deportations. Listen to Tom Homan. He has been crisscrossing the United States, talking to governors, talking to mayors, talking to police chiefs about what is going to be happening day one when Donald Trump takes office. He's going to be reversing 4 years of a porous open border that Joe Biden created and presided over, and this was criminal. Not to mention all the criminals that get into the country. Donald Trump is going to do mass deportation. Where do you think these millions of illegals are going to go to get away from being deported? Do you think they're going back to Panama, where for most of them their journey started? Or are they going to go north to the soft center of Canada and maybe try to get back in through the northern border into the United States? Is that a possibility, or is that a probability? Yes, because it happened before. It can happen again. The last time Justin Trudeau invited the world to come to Canada as refugees, Canada has an open door, Justin Trudeau said. That might not be the talking point right now, but Canada will not be able to contain the number of illegals that are going to be coming north. And Canada is not taking this seriously. It's not taking Trump's tariff very seriously. And why is this all building up at the last moment? Why is this building up right now at the end, mid-January? Because Justin Trudeau wants this to be about us, meaning Canadians under the Liberal government, versus them, meaning Donald Trump and the people who he wants to demonize as his allies. That includes Danielle Smith, and he wants to do the same with Pierre Poilievre. Now, Pierre Poilievre is speaking at noon today, Eastern Time. I'm going to be listening very carefully. I might do a later broadcast about that. Why? Because where has Pierre Poilievre been for the last week? Now, yes, he has commented in one news conference, and it was a very good news conference. But where has he been for the last week on this issue? He's not part of these discussions. He's not even commenting on these discussions. Why do you think that is? Because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't want to be identified as one of these people who's not playing on Team Canada. He has to stick to Canada first, that we need to negotiate with Donald Trump from a position of strength, yes, but not from a position of delusion, thinking we can win a trade war and not knowing that Justin Trudeau does want a trade war simply because it's going to keep the Liberal Party in power. even if he has to bring down the country with him. Justin Trudeau will want a trade war. And so do all these Liberal candidates who are running for leader. They want a trade war because it will benefit the Liberal Party, because the Liberal Party will be identified as Canada. And if you oppose the Liberal Party, you're opposing Canada. It's the old trick, you know? And that's what's going on with Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre, who are natural allies. I'm interested to see what Poilievre is going to say at this news conference today. It's incredibly important because these are very dangerous times that the Liberal government, still the Trudeau government, can exploit for their own opportunities. I can't say that enough. They want the trade war. They know Canada's going to lose that trade war, but they think they are going to divide and conquer and come up through the middle and win. Power. Even if it's a fractured, fragmented country, they don't care as long as they're in control of it. And that's what it comes down to. I've gone a little over time today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember our merchandise. And remember, Doug Ford is backing up Trudeau all the way. We'll be back again.
And sell this fish. Fresh fish! Fresh fish! Fresh fish!
Yeah, that's it. We'll be back again, maybe later today, but certainly tomorrow with more of the news you need to know, and continue to resolve to resist at this very dangerous juncture in our nation's history. Can't say that enough with more conviction.